The number one reason why you currently don't have your own location-independent Alpha 2.0 business that sets you free from your 9-to-5 job and your collapsing Western country, the number one reason you don't already have that now is not the reason you think. The reason you think you don't have that business is because, well, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to do it. Wrong. That's not the reason. You might be shocked at how much you do know about how to start a business, even the one that I talk about, location-independent, consulting, or a service-based business, location-independent, international, blah, blah, blah. You might, especially if you've been following my content a long time, you got a lot of resources on what to do. That's not the main reason. There are probably several reasons, but that's not the main one. Can't even talk. That's not the main reason why you don't have a business like this. The main reason why is because you think like an employee. You've been an employee your entire life. So your entire mental state, your entire societal programming, your entire mindset is that of an employee and not of an entrepreneur. And so when you're an employee and you've been trained your entire life, decades perhaps, depending on your age, to think like an employee, it is very hard to make that mental shift to think like an entrepreneur. And if you started thinking like an entrepreneur and got rid of all that employee garbage, you would be starting a business right now. You'd be making several $1,000s very quickly. It would be a very easy transition for you if the mindset shifted. So let me give you some examples of employee mindset that I see a lot, especially in our 90-Day Business Builder program, but also questions I get on my social media and things like that. Here are some examples of questions that are indicative of an employee mindset. Caleb, what if I don't know how to solve their problem? What if I don't know? Get that a lot. It doesn't matter if you don't know. See, if you're an employee, who can do your work? Just you. If you're an employee in my company and I'm paying you a salary, and I don't have employees because Alpha 2.0 business model, you don't have employees. You don't want salaried employees. But let's say you did and you were. Who can do your work? You. Can you hire a bunch of people if you're an employee to do your job for you? No. So you have this wired in your head, I have to know how to do everything or else I can't do it. That's an employee mindset thinking. Wrong. You don't need to know how to solve their problem, the problem of your niche. You don't need to know. Why? Because you can go on Upwork and very cheaply hire a technician or an admin person, because it's usually one of those two, technician or admin person in a country like India, Philippines, Bangladesh, Nepal, who are very, very cheap, who will know how to solve that problem and do it better and more quickly than you anyway. And you charge this much and you pay them this much, which is a lot for them, and it's a win-win-win. You make a bunch of money, they make a lot of money based on what they're used to getting in their countries, and your client gets their problem fixed. You don't need to know. If you read one of the best business books ever written, The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber, I strongly recommend you read that book and just internalize that book and just worship that book. One of the things he talks about in there is it's actually better to start a business where you don't know how to do the thing you're selling, because it forces you to think like a CEO and a business owner instead of an employee. I had a friend many years ago, and I was still living in the collapsing USA in Portland, Oregon, and he was a serial entrepreneur, and he was a very successful entrepreneur. He would start a business, work at it for about 3 years, make a bunch of money, and then sell it or do something else and start another business. And he kept doing this. It was really fun for him. And his rule was, I cannot know how to do the thing I'm selling. I can't know anything about it, because if I know how to do it, I'll start getting in there and working in the business instead of on the business. Again, a concept from the E-Myth. So that was his rule. So when you're an entrepreneur, you don't worry about how to fix the problem. That's not your problem. Your problem is getting clients. How to solve the problem, the implementation is the easy part. It's true. Here's another question that is indicative of an employee mindset. Caleb, do you think I should go back to school to get XYZ skill in order to start my business? Or, Caleb, do you think I should go get this certification before I quit my job so I can start my business? Or should I go back to college to start my business? Or should I get I only have a bachelor's degree, Caleb. Maybe I should go back. My soul dies when I hear this question, this particular version of it. Maybe I should go get a master's degree before I start my business, Caleb. Okay. God damn it. This is hardcore employee thinking. This is a true statistic from my life. You ready for this? I have been self-employed for about 30, what's the exact number? 31 years? I forget the number. A long, long, long time. I have worked with thousands of people, hundreds of companies, literally, as a consultant and B2C. I've done all kinds of things. How many times do you think, out of the hundreds of people I've worked with, the hundreds of people who have paid me, including as a consultant, who asked me, do I have X certification, or what was my college degree? How many people do you think have asked me that question? I've worked with hundreds. What would you guess? Get a number in your head. 30, 50, 22. You want to know the answer? One. One time in my, let's see, mid-20s, the owner of the company, after I'd already been hired as a junior consultant, he said, and where'd you go to school? Wanted to know what college I went to. I said, actually, I didn't go to college. I went right to work in the corporate world as soon as I left high school because I wanted to get into the world and get to work. He goes, well, hey, that's great. You're self-taught. That's great. And he just moved on. He didn't care. And his team had already hired me. That's it. No one in the entrepreneurial world, when you have your own business, gives a fuck what your education is, what your certifications are. They don't care. All they care is, can you help me solve my problem or alleviate my problem? They don't give a shit in the entrepreneurial world. You know where they care a lot about your stupid college degree and your stupid certificates and your stupid certifications? In the job world. When they hire you and they're going to make you an employee and pay you on salary and you get a 1% raise every year. Then that matters. I promise you, as an example, this guy, this owner of this business, it's a big financial company. If he had found out that I didn't go to college, but I was an employee of his, working on salary, then my boss would have been in trouble. He would have gone right to my boss and said, why'd you hire this kid without a college degree at this important job? Because when you're an employee, they care. When you're a business owner, they don't give a fuck. I have made literally millions of dollars as a consultant going back since the mid-1990s. No one asked me, except for that one example, that one exception. Where did you go to school? What's your college degree in? What certifications? Do you have an A+ certification? Because I had that at one point when I was an employee. Do you have an MCSE? Do you have a blah, 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 blah? Do you have blah, blah? They don't give a fuck. You know what they care about? Can you help me solve or alleviate my problem? You can, you're hired. Now, I realize it's not quite that simple, but it's almost that simple. It doesn't matter. Here's the next thing that is indicative of an employee mindset. I have to start a business that I'm really excited about or that my background is in. So my background is in accounting. I better start an accounting business. Or my passion is martial arts, so I want to start a martial arts business. Employee thinking, because that's what people have been telling you your whole life. Follow your passion. Okay, no. You don't follow your passion as your first business. You follow your passion or follow your heart or follow what you're good at, because what you're good at is usually what you want to do, right? So let me back up. When people say I should start a business of something I'm good at, something my background is in, what they're really saying is I should start a business with something I personally want to do. Because if you hated doing what you did for a living at your job, you would have never said, I better start a business that has to do with my job. Because you wouldn't want to do it. So that's really language for, I want to start a business that I want to start. Right? Right. You start your passion business, the business you really want to start, as your second business or your third business. You don't start it as your first business, because the most important thing in my world when you start your first business is not doing what you love or following your passion or going back to college or starting a business that will impress your daddy and your mommy and your best friend or whatever the fuck. No. The most important thing with your first business is speed. Speed. Getting the money fast. You don't want to start your first business and wait a year and a half to start making money. That's insane. Your Western country right now is collapsing right before your fucking eyes. United States, Canada, UK. Have you been in any of these countries lately? I have. I just visited the United States. I almost wanted to throw up. Thank God I'm not there anymore. Your country is collapsing right before your eyes, and AI is right on your doorstep ready to take your job. What the hell are you doing? You don't start a passion business and then figure out how to make money with it. No, you start your first business based on the models that we're talking about here at Caleb Jones, Alpha Male 2.0, Unchained CEO. Find a narrow niche, figure out what their biggest problem is, do a consulting or service-based business to help them solve or alleviate that problem. You make thousands of dollars very fast, location dependent. Then you quit your fucking 9-to-5 job. You're now free from your job. You're now location dependent. And then from a position of freedom and authority and safety, then you start your passion business. Then you start your yoga for pregnant women, or you start your karate dojo, or you start your bookkeeping business. Don't start bookkeeping. AI is going to kill you. You get my point. Do that as your second or third business, not as your first business. One of my most profitable businesses is teaching dating advice for men on how men can date multiple chicks, right? Right. Do you think that was the first business I started in 1996 when I was 25 years old and didn't know anything? I'm going to teach guys how to date multiple girls. That's exciting to me. No, that's not my first business. That, I think, was my fifth business. My first business, full-time business, when I quit my job, was computer consulting, a consulting practice. Was that my number one thing I was passionate about? No. I'd rather write fiction novels. And if I were writing fiction novels today, instead of having chosen being a consultant back then, I'd make maybe $22,000 a year selling shit on Amazon. Maybe, if I was lucky, wouldn't be living this life. Right. So you start your passion business second or third, or the business that you're good at, or the business that has to do with your job. You do that as your second or third business. You don't do it as your first business. Those are just 3 examples, but there are many other examples of things that you're thinking you need to do because you're thinking like an employee and not like a business owner. When you shift your mindset from employee thinking to business thinking, all of a sudden, all the things you need to do to start your location-independent Alpha 2.0 business to get you free from your 9-to-5 job in your collapsing Western country get really easy because your brain's not fighting you anymore. Your brain says, oh, this makes perfect sense. Stop thinking like an employee.